There are three people in your life right now who you think are helping you succeed, but they're actually stealing your future. And the worst part? You'll defend them until it's too late. You probably talk to them every day. You trust them. You value their opinions. But while you're sharing your dreams with them, they're quietly suffocating those dreams with doubt, envy, and comfort. Not because they're bad people, but because they represent three specific patterns that destroy the lives of anyone who keeps them close. The question isn't whether you know these people. The question is, do you have the courage to see them for what they really are? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the people closest to you have been holding you back, not through cruelty or malice, but through something far more dangerous: love, concern, and familiarity. This is the paradox that most people never escape. We are taught that surrounding ourselves with people who care about us will lead to success. But what if the very act of being cared for in certain ways is what keeps us trapped? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who explored the deepest layers of human psychology, discovered something unsettling. We don't just inherit our parents' trauma and patterns. We inherit their limitations. We adopt the beliefs of those closest to us, not through choice, but through osmosis. Their fears become our fears. Their ceilings become our ceilings. But here's what most people miss. This doesn't just happen with family. It happens with anyone who holds enough emotional real estate in your mind. Three specific types of people do this most effectively. They're not toxic in the obvious ways. They don't yell, manipulate, or betray you outwardly. Instead, they operate through something subtler, something philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre called bad faith. They live in denial about their own unfulfilled potential, and they unconsciously need others around them to stay small too. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Because if you succeed, it forces them to confront their own failures. Let me be clear about something. The people you're about to learn about aren't evil. Many of them love you deeply. But love and growth aren't always compatible. In fact, they're often at war. So who are these three people, and why do they matter so much? The first, the comfortable mirror. This is the person who looks exactly like you. Or rather, they look like who you used to be. Plus, they share your background, your struggles, your starting point. They speak your language in a way that feels validating. When you tell them about your ambitions, they nod with understanding. They say things like, "I get it, I've been there," or "That sounds nice, but you know how things really work." They make you feel understood because they understand your limitations from the inside. Here's the trap. Understanding your struggles and helping you overcome them are two different things. The comfortable mirror is the friend who's been in the same neighborhood their whole life. The colleague who's been at the same job for 15 years. The family member who's tried and failed and now warns you about the dangers of trying again. They're not discouraging you maliciously. They're protecting you from disappointment, the same disappointment they experienced. But what they're really doing is something more insidious. They're keeping you in a hall of mirrors where everything you see reflects your current self. There's no expansion. There's no growth. There's only familiarity. Psychologically, this is rooted in what researchers call social comparison theory. When we're around people at our level, our brains feel safe. We don't have to confront our potential because no one around us is confronting theirs. It's like staying in a warm house while a storm rages outside. It feels good. It feels right. But comfort is the enemy of transformation. And here's where it gets dangerous. The comfortable mirror often disguises itself as your biggest supporter. They'll celebrate your small wins. They'll listen to your problems. They'll make you feel seen and understood. This is why you don't recognize them as a threat. They feel like home. But home can be a prison if the walls never change. The second, the energy vampire. This person doesn't discourage you directly. Instead, they slowly drain your capacity to believe in yourself. They're the person who always has a bigger problem than you. When you share your struggles, they turn the conversation to theirs. When you talk about your wins, they minimize them or redirect the focus. They're not doing this consciously. They're doing it because they're drowning, and they need you to notice. They need your attention, your emotional labor, and your energy. The energy vampire operates through what neuroscientists call emotional contagion. Their stress becomes your stress. Their chaos becomes your chaos. Your nervous system literally synchronizes with theirs through mirror neurons, a biological mechanism that makes us unconsciously mimic the emotional states of those around us. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how exhausted you feel after spending time with someone, even though you didn't do anything physically demanding? That's not a coincidence. That's biology meeting psychology, and it's destroying your ability to pursue your dreams. Here's what makes the energy vampire particularly dangerous. They often appear to need you. They seem lost without your guidance, your support, your presence. So you stay. You help. You try to fix them. And in doing so, you abandon yourself. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, discovered something profound. When we sacrifice our own meaning and purpose for someone else, we don't actually save them. We simply join them in meaninglessness. Two drowning people don't rescue each other. They both drowned. The energy vampire makes you feel needed, which feels like love. But it's not love. It's dependence dressed up as connection. The third, the ceiling keeper. This is perhaps the most dangerous of the three. The ceiling keeper is someone who succeeded, or at least succeeded enough. They made it past a certain point and then stopped. They reached a plateau and decided that was the peak. Now they're the authority on what's possible. They're the entrepreneur who built a 6-figure business and then told you that 7 figures is unrealistic. They're the athlete who made it to a certain level and convinced you that going further is obsessive. They're the person who achieved something real, which is why you believe them. This is the trap. Because they succeeded in some way, we assume they understand the full spectrum of what's possible. We don't realize they're showing us their ceiling, not the ceiling. Philosophically, this relates to what Aldous Huxley called the perennial philosophy problem. Those who reach a certain level of attainment often become dogmatic about what they've learned. They mistake their achievement for enlightenment. They confuse their ceiling with the universe's ceiling. The ceiling keeper isn't trying to hold you back. They're trying to save you from the pain they felt pushing past their own limits. And they reached their breaking point and decided that breaking points aren't worth breaking through. So they build walls around you, justified walls, reasonable walls, walls built with the best intentions. But walls are still walls. Here's what's crucial to understand. All three of these people feel right. They feel safe. They feel loving. They feel reasonable. That's why you haven't left them yet. That's why you'll probably keep seeing them even after you watch this. And that's the real problem. How these three are reshaping your reality without your permission. You need to understand something about how the human brain works. We are not rational creatures who make decisions based on logic and facts. We are emotional creatures who make decisions based on the environment we're in and the people we're around. Your brain literally rewires itself based on the people you spend time with. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to physically change and reorganize based on experience, means that every conversation with these three types of people is literally restructuring your neural pathways. When the comfortable mirror tells you that's just how people like us are, your brain creates pathways that accept that as truth. When the energy vampire drains your resources, your nervous system learns to operate in a state of depletion. When the ceiling keeper shows you their limits, your brain maps those limits onto your own potential. This isn't metaphorical. This is literal neurobiology. But the consequences go deeper than just your brain. They shape your identity. And the psychologists call this identity foreclosure, a state where you stop exploring who you could be and lock yourself into who you are. You make this identity decision partly because of your own fears, but largely because the people around you reinforce it. They expect certain things from you. You perform those expectations. Over time, you forget you were performing and believe the performance is real. The comfortable mirror expects you to stay like them, so you do. The energy vampire needs you to be their supporter, so you become that. The ceiling keeper expects you to respect their limits, so you internalize those limits as your own wisdom. And here's the most unsettling part. You'll defend all three of them. When someone points out that these people are holding you back, you'll rush to their defense. Notice they're just being realistic. They're going through a tough time. They're actually really successful. Who am I to think I could do better? This defense mechanism is called cognitive dissonance. Your mind protecting itself from the painful realization that the people you love might be inadvertently sabotaging you. It's easier to deny the problem than to face it. Because facing it means losing relationships. It means becoming the person who abandoned their old friends for ambition. It means becoming someone your comfortable mirror doesn't recognize anymore. And that terrifies us. But here's what terrifies us even more, if we're being honest. The possibility that we'll look back in 10 years and realize we sacrificed our dreams to keep people comfortable. This is where everything inverts. You've been taught that loyalty means staying, that love means sacrifice, that growth means betrayal. But what if the opposite is true? What if the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop letting them keep you small? Here's a truth that very few people understand. When you grow, you don't leave people behind. You show them that growth is possible. You become a mirror for their own potential. The people who feel abandoned by your success aren't abandoned because you succeeded. They're triggered because your success forced them to confront their own choices. That's not your responsibility to manage. Let me give you a counterintuitive framework that changes everything. The first rebellion is permission. You need to permit yourself to want more than what the people around you have achieved. This sounds simple, but it's not. Your brain will resist this. It will throw up all kinds of objections. Who do you think you are? People like us don't do that. You're being unrealistic. These thoughts aren't true. They have inherited limitations in speaking. The second rebellion is distance. Not necessarily cutting people off, though sometimes that becomes necessary, but creating psychological and temporal distance. Spend less time with the three people we discussed, not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. You wouldn't ask a drowning person to teach you to swim. Why would you ask people who stopped growing to teach you how to grow? The third rebellion is replacement. Fill the space left by these three people with people who are already where you want to go. This is uncomfortable. You'll feel like an imposter. You won't speak their language yet, but your brain will adapt. Your neural pathways will rewire. Over months, you'll find yourself thinking differently, wanting different things, capable of different actions. The historical examples are everywhere. Every person who achieved something remarkable had to leave someone behind. Not always literally, but always psychologically. They stopped seeing their old environment as their ceiling and started seeing it as their floor. Steve Jobs had to leave his comfort zone. Oprah Winfrey had to stop accepting the limitations her environment placed on her. Every athlete, entrepreneur, artist, or visionary had to reach a point where they cared more about their potential than about being comfortable. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. This isn't about abandonment. This is about integrity. When you keep seeing the comfortable mirror, the energy vampire, and the ceiling keeper while simultaneously trying to grow, you're living a lie. You're pretending to want growth while arranging your life around stagnation. You're creating cognitive dissonance that will eventually exhaust you. True rebellion means making a choice. Either you choose these people and accept their limitations as your own, or you choose yourself and accept that some relationships will change or end. Most people choose the first option because it's less painful in the short term. But the long-term pain is exponentially greater. What I'm about to tell you will feel uncomfortable. It will challenge everything you've been taught about loyalty, love, and obligation. But once you understand it, you can never unknow it. And the ultimate truth is this: you are not responsible for other people's growth, and other people are not responsible for yours. This sounds selfish to modern ears. We've been conditioned to believe that real love means sacrifice, that real friendship means staying, that real family loyalty means putting their comfort before your own evolution. But what if this conditioning is exactly what keeps people small? Here's what psychology reveals. When you sacrifice your growth for someone else, you don't actually help them grow. You model stagnation. You teach them that growth is less important than loyalty. You become a mirror that reflects their own willingness to stay small. But when you pursue your own growth ruthlessly, something shifts. You become proof that it's possible. Not in a way that makes them feel bad about their choices, but in a way that shows them that another option exists. Jean-Paul Sartre said that we are condemned to be free, that we have the freedom to choose our path. And with that freedom comes the absolute responsibility for our lives. You cannot outsource this responsibility to the people around you. You cannot say, "I wanted to grow, but my friends needed me," and expect to feel fulfilled. Because deep down, you'll know you chose comfort over truth. And that choice eats away at your soul. The three people we discussed, the comfortable mirror, the energy vampire, the ceiling keeper, they're not the problem. They're a mirror. They're showing you where you stand. They're showing you what happens when you stop pushing. They're showing you what happens when you exchange ambition for belonging. But here's what most people don't understand. Belonging at the cost of becoming is not actually belonging. It's erasure. When you're with the comfortable mirror, you're not truly known because you're not truly yourself. You're performing a version of yourself that makes them comfortable. When you're with the energy vampire, you're not truly loved because they need you to be diminished so they can depend on you. When you're with the ceiling keeper, you're not truly guided because they're showing you their path, not your path. So what's the actual solution? It's not dramatic. It's not about burning bridges or becoming a heartless person who only cares about success. It's about something much more profound. Conscious choice. You must consciously choose who deserves your time and energy. You must consciously choose whether you're building a life of meaning or a life of comfort. You must consciously choose whether you're going to be the person who inspires others to grow or the person who asks others to stay small. And when you make that conscious choice, something remarkable happens. The three people we discussed either evolve with you or naturally fall away. The ones who evolve become genuine supports for your growth. The ones who fall away make room for people who are already growing and can actually show you the way. This isn't revenge. This isn't punishment. It's just physics. You can't stay in the same place and move forward simultaneously. There's one more thing you need to know, and this is where everything crystallizes. The three people you need to stop seeing immediately. Sometimes they're people you know, but sometimes, and this might be the most important realization, they're versions of yourself. The comfortable mirror is the part of you that wants to stay safe. The energy vampire is the part of you that's drowning in self-doubt and demanding reassurance from others. The ceiling keeper is the part of you that's afraid of failure. So you convince yourself that you've already succeeded enough. When you finally understand this, everything changes. You're not cutting off external people. You're integrating internal conflicts. You're choosing to stop negotiating with the parts of yourself that want to stay small. The real question isn't, who should I stop seeing? The real question is, who do I want to become, and what am I willing to sacrifice to get there? Because here's the truth that no one wants to hear. Growth always requires loss. Unless you lose comfort, you lose belonging to your old tribe. You lose the validation that comes from being the person everyone expected you to be. But you gain something infinitely more valuable. You gain your life. You gain the ability to look back and know that you chose growth over comfort, truth over belonging, authenticity over performance. You gain the power to inspire others through your own example, not through your sacrifice. So the question now is simple. Are you willing to stop seeing these three people, whether they're external or internal, and finally start seeing yourself? Because that's where everything begins.